Okay.
Okay, thank you, Karen, for inviting me. And yeah, this is such an activist group. I was trying to think of what I could actually say that you don't already know. So I, uh, I think most of what I could say today you do already know. You know, I think we all know that we can win if we get Democratic-leaning voters to the poll. The more we get, the better. I think we all know that we're the ones who are going to make it happen. Voter turnout doesn't happen by itself, and people in democracy need to tend to democracy, and that's what we're being called to do. And the other thing I was thinking that we all know also is that everything we do, even efforts that seem small, add up because there's so many of us stepping up to the plate right now. I'm on Neighbors on Call email list. I haven't canvassed with them very much recently, but they had a picture of their last canvass for Lisa Grafstein, and I actually counted the people in the picture. There were 70 of them.
Wow.
So, um, so there are a lot of us getting out and doing voter outreach one way or the other, whether you're canvassing, phone banking, writing zillions of postcards. We're all reaching out to voters. So um, yeah, it's incredibly prolific activism there. So you all know that, but sometimes we need to be reminded. As I was joined a few minutes early and heard people talking, I heard all the reasons that we all are also concerned. You know, there's a lot of momentum, there's a lot of energy, and we're also worry warts like Dewey, worrying about voter suppression in this state and other states like Georgia and Texas and God knows what other. Those are the ones that jump to mind, but it's happening lots of places. I find Mark Elias' Democracy Docket both helpful and pretty reassuring. It just seems like the litigation in lots of cases is going pretty well, and there's still some cases he's looking to September to find out what happens. So yeah, it is a bit of it is concern that we can't completely turn away from, but what can we do about it? I also read Just Craven has a weekly list of all the good things that happen, and she mentioned in her post yesterday about how much the Democratic Party, the National Democratic Party, is putting voter protection. They've been working on it for 4 years, and it's really high priority, and they've been working on it. So I have some confidence that there are so many people who are been expecting voter suppression and shenanigans from the Republican Party for 4 years now that we are better prepared than some of us think. So it won't change the worry ward in us, but we have to. That's part of our motivation to get even more people to the polls and do what we can, right? So that said, I just thought I would give a few thoughts about what we can do to support more people to get to the polls. And, you know, there are lots of reasons some voters don't vote, some potential voters don't vote. And, you know, I've sort of changed my perspective a little bit on why this is. I think some of it is because it doesn't seem doable to people. They're busy, they're stressed, there are barriers, they're not familiar with the rules, they misunderstand the rules. Voting, sometimes there are just obstacles they don't know how to overcome. You know, if anyone looks at the list of rules now for voting by mail, wow, compared to the pandemic, it's pretty daunting. You know, you've got to get a photocopy of your ID or fill in a photo ID exemption form. You've got to, I read that it takes actually 3 forever stamps now to mail a ballot back. You got to get it in the mail. You got to receive the ballot by mail and get it back by mail. No grace period after electing. Anyway, it used to be like this wonderful thing we had to make voting easier, and I'm not sure that it's that anymore. So I don't discourage people from using it, but when I talk to people, I just want to make sure they're prepared to navigate through it. So I think one of the reasons people don't get to vote, even if they intend to, is they just or want to, is that they don't know the rules. And it's hard to navigate. It just doesn't seem doable. And then there are other people who just feel like their voting won't make a difference. That they're tired of people asking for their vote and then things not changing enough. And we're definitely going to encounter some of that. I mean, we definitely do encounter some of that, and it's both understandable and also some of those people are open to discussion. So we just uh, uh, take a deep breath and enter the discussion with those people, unless they're MAGA Republicans, in which case we don't try too hard. So I think what voters need from us is helping make voting doable. We need to build their confidence. And somehow the word confidence has started coming into my vocabulary. Started when I was reading about young people. And one of the reasons that young people don't vote is because they don't really have the confidence they know how to do it. They've never done it before, or it seems complicated, or if they're college students, they might be away from home, away from parental support, and also just they're not plugged in. And I think but I'm coming to think that it's also true of lots of people. When I remember talking a month ago to some and around Durham, central Durham, people were confused about the photo ID rules, and they thought, well, I'm not sure I have the right ID, so I'll just stay home, even though they actually had driver's license. So I think people need confidence, and that's one of the things that we can give them. And then, as I mentioned, for people who are like ambivalent about voting, I think we just need to engage in conversations and see where they lead. So, as to me, this is a slight reframing of what we do when we canvass. It's focused on what the voters need. If you go to a canvas or a phone bank, or even if you look at a postcard campaign, those organizations, whoever setting those up, have goals. They want to make sure voters know who the Democratic candidates are. They want to shore up support for those candidates. They want to see how supportive they are, so they can figure out which ones they want to contact again right before the election. And of course, they want to try to persuade some reluctant or ambivalent voters. And all that makes sense, but what if we turn it around and focus from the voters' perspective what they might need? So imagine you're knocking on someone's door and they open the door and they see a Democrat and they have some sympathy for Democrats, or lean Democrats, or strong Democrats. What is it that they need? And I think it's just a subtle switch in framing it this way, rather than on framing what you're told by the canvassers that you're supposed to achieve versus what the voters need. But I think it's kind of helps me connect more with voters to think of it this way. And again, the content is kind of similar. They need to know the how of voting. They need to have confidence when they see that whole ballot. And I printed out a sample ballot last night for myself. It's long, so people, like when they are asked to do something, they want to know that they can do it, and that's a lot to handle. So I think we can. One of the things they could use from us is information and confidence about the whole ballot. Down ballot race voting, the more you hear about it, we've known for a long time we need to make people more aware of what's going on in the state legislature and the courts, and make sure they have, and there are all the other races, the attorney general and public instruction. We really want people to know about them, and it really is a problem for Democrats the Sister District Project had done a study recently looking back at the battleground states, which included North Carolina, at state legislative races, and they looked at how many people voted for the top of the ballot but did not vote for state legislative races. And it was something pretty, gosh, I don't have the statistic in front of me, something like 80% of Democrats in those states did not vote for full ballot, compared to 37% of Republicans. So somehow Democrats have this idea that we need to know about every candidate before we're going to check off the list, whereas Republicans say, I'm just for my party and I'll just vote for every Republican. So and they also had another statistic that I heard today, something like in nine states, I might be off by one, 9 states in some recent election, 2022 or 2020, that if those down ballot drop off, they call it roll off, had decreased by 2%. So they had gotten 2% more of those people to vote for those lower offices. It would have affected the control of the at least one of the chambers in the state legislature in 9 states. So yeah, it's just something to be aware of. I think we're all enthusiastic about Harris and Walz, and people are more likely to know about those candidates than about the other candidates. So I think one of the things voters need from us is they get faced with this whole ballot. It would be helpful for them to know that about these down ballot races and for know why they're who the candidates are and why they might want to vote for them. So yeah. We have lots of ways of reaching people: canvassing, phone banking, postcarding, letter writing, and I think we just need to look for opportunities to get as much of this, cram as much of this in to our interactions as possible, as our outreach as possible. So even if you have a Canvas script that says is trying to assess support for a candidate or support for Democrats up and down the ballot, I think just taking some time to make sure people really understand the ballot, and also just find out from them, like, what is it that makes voting hard for you? It's never occurred to me really to ask someone that, and it really seems like a pretty obvious question, like, what makes voting hard? And maybe you can go through some things like, do you have is it hard for you to get information about the candidates? Is it hard for you to find time off, which is a good cue for talking about early voting? There are ways that you can be helpful with them and give them encouragement. So for me, I guess it's this perspective of what the voter needs is sort of like, okay, let's make it easier, doable for voters. What do they really need? Let's not go, when we are approaching voters, what do we don't assume that we know what they need. I've even written like 200 postcards for Postcards of Swing States, and they have such a limited message that I started adding things to it. And I had some email back and forth with the organizers, and it went back and forth okay for a couple email exchanges, and then they just didn't want to talk to me anymore, because clearly I was going to mess up their research because they do research on it, if I was going to add things to. But I did anyway, because I just thought you probably some of you may be familiar with Postcards of Swing States. They have a huge campaign, but their information, and they have very state specific ones. And the one for North Carolina is to go to a website, and I think it might end up taking you to the North Carolina Board of Elections website, but boy, that's a lot to navigate, and it didn't give any specific information except the November 5th. The message had nothing specific except that November 5th was election day. But God, what a waste of postcard space. So sorry to badmouth Postcards of Swing States, but I just think, whatever campaigns, not all campaigns are the same, whether they're postcardsing or canvassing or phone banking, they're not all the same, and they don't always have what I think are what's most important for voters. So I try to honor the spirit of a script, whether it's a postcard or canvassing, but I try to fill in other things and try to see what people need. I feel like I have an ongoing conversation with Jonathan Riley, who's their organizing director, one-page staff in Durham Democrats, and he has a script, and I hate that script, and he knows I do not use that script. But we've been doing all these online trainings together. Maybe I shouldn't have that on recording. Oh well. Where he talks to everybody about what the script is, and then he turns it over to me, and I do the rest of the presentation, and I talk about how I change scripts. and we do role plays, where we did some role plays last week where he was the voter and I was the canvasser, and I was very good at, I got all the points across that he wanted to get across in his script, but I did not use his script. And we were trying to model an example of somebody who needed some conversation. So yeah, I'm hoping I'll have some influence on him, but I'm not sure yet. Anyway, so it seems like whatever you're doing, whether it's like being a renegade on writing postcards, I don't know if I should recommend that or not, or canvassing or phone banking, just try to think about, like, what does this vote voter that you're talking to or trying to reach out to, what might they need? And, always check with people when you're in a conversation anyway about whether they have a photo ID, and if they don't, have that conversation. And I think it's about time to start asking people about transportation to the polls. I haven't done that yet, but there are some. I think that's another question. So, and giving people information about where to get information about candidates. Typically, in the past, I've referred people to the League of Women Voters, vote411.org. But I think I didn't really. There are some better ones now. Like You Can Vote. If you go on youcanvote.org, go to their voter guide. They have a place where you can build a link where you can build your ballot. So you click on it and it shows you each office, and then it has a couple sentences description of what that office does, like state legislator or what, and you can click on more to get more detail, and then it gives you the candidates, and it has information about the candidates, and it's much more inclusive than the League of Women Voters. It takes information both from the candidate's website as well as articles that have been written about them. So you get, you don't just get the shiny talking points that the candidate wants to get across. You get a broader perspective. So it takes some time to go through all of it, because you could do that for every candidate down to the most local level. But you get to build your ballot. You look at it and you choose which ones you like, and it sort of builds a ballot. And at the end of it, you can email it to yourself or print it out, whatever you want to do. So it's kind of cool. And then there's one that's nonpartisan, and there's one called, oh God, Blue. I'll find the link for it and give it to Jewel, make sure it gets in the follow-up. There's one just for Democrats where it shows you all the Democratic candidates and has information about them. So there are, and then there Blueprint North Carolina, Democracy in North Carolina. Through Democracy in North Carolina, I think you can also find a nonpartisan, very much more detailed voter guide. So I need to start getting this information so I have it with me when I do some voter outreach, so I can give people information about the ballot, especially now that we have our sample ballots as of this weekend. Yay. I think that's really all I have to say. Just you know what I wanted to end the quote with. As I was looking through my emails for the Zoom link today, I found an email from, don't ask me why I saved this, from Karen from September of 2022. So it was almost this time of year, 2022, and I'll just read her couple of sentences. I think it's kind of funny because it could be written again today. Early voting in North Carolina starts in 5 weeks. I think it's a little less right now, a little more right now here. And November 8th is less than 8 weeks away. It's a delicate balance we have to find right now. We have to really dig in, but we also have to slow down and breathe and not let ourselves get too busy and anxious. So if you're already doing too much, don't be tempted to sign up for more. If you have room for more, there are plenty of suggestions below. That was the beginning of your post. Let's just recycle that one, right? So yeah, I think that's where we are, and I don't really have anything to add that I don't think you guys already know. So thank you, Karen, and open it up. We'll hand it back over to Karen, whatever.